Are both Centaur renders any good? Hellforge, yes, but I didn't want to make this video without addressing whether the base variant is quote-unquote bugged. That's a more complex issue. Please like, subscribe, and consider donating through my Ko-fi page. I need your support out there. So, I wanted to both test them more in battle and find out more about this supposed bug issue, and the video by Human Boy YesYes directly addressed the issue. Also, of course, most artillery are no good at hitting cavalry at full gallop. They kind of shouldn't be. The argument is that in addition to other benefits, the hitboxes of the both Centaurs just isn't big enough and that bullets pass between them. Yeah, notice that there are 16 models per unit on Ultra. That is, you're comparing these monstrous beasts with practically shoulder-to-shoulder, huge horse model Chaos Knights, albeit with big shields to reduce the damage to a point. Yeah, the bullets aren't passing through. I would expect that from pure physical density. The thing is, the base Bull Centaur has scaly skin for 25% missile resistance, 15% fire resistance where appropriate, and silver shields to block 55% of small arms fire. That is, 55% of the 75% of the bullets that weren't simply ignored with scaly skin, which equals 41.25% that get through to cause damage to the armor when they physically strike to begin with. Even if the hitboxes are working 100% as intended, the base variant is built to be very, very difficult to stop before it hits a line of missile infantry. The thing is, that's what the base variant is good for. It's inferior to the other two in all other respects, mainly in melee awesomeness. All variants are basically a cross between a Chaos Dwarf, a Black Orc, and a Centaur. Armor is a relatively squishy 50 armor for base value, weapon damage is heavily tilted toward armor-piercing damage, and melee attack starts at 36 with melee defense 48. That is, they're actually better at preventing damage in a brawl than most cavalry, except here's the thing. You're meant to think that they're cavalry. They sort of are, but they're not. They're listed as monstrous beasts because they are. They function more like a spawn of Zinch unit in terms of numbers, splash damage, and mass. But the renders are more expensive because that armor-piercing damage is really awesome. My point is, they attack at the rate of regular sword infantry faster than the Chaos Dwarf warriors. Infernal Guard, they do, monstrous damage when they hit. For the base variant, we're done. Let's talk about the other two. The Great Weapons variant sacrifices a bit of charge bonus for a big, fat 25 bonus versus large, which helps them hit large opponents in addition to the extra damage. Since their attack stats are more like halberdiers than anything else, they need the help. Of course, that's of no help versus infantry, but you're not actually losing anything, except those shields. Remember that part for later. The dual axis variant has a particularly large charge bonus and plus 18 versus infantry, which, against, the goody two-shoes dwarfs, and so on, will be absolutely, positively brutal. You fight so much infantry in this game that I'm sure you'll find the use for it. Though I see why most people just take great weapons as a safer option, and because efficient anti-large and sustained melee is a major problem for the Chaos Dwarfs in general, as a faction. I'm not going to get into the Hellforge upgrades beyond saying, one is basically the hunger from vampire factions you regenerate in melee where you want your Centaurs to be. It's ridiculous. Those upgrades are also expensive, but you probably can't afford many of these units for most of the game. Tactically, renders play multiple roles, but the big one is what I call pushing. They're not fast enough to be your first choice hitting artillery in the rear. That would be Hobgoblin Wolf Riders or Sneaky Gits, or a Great Taurus if you aren't facing a wall of anti-air. Instead, it's not which flavor you're using, it's the anti-armor and the speed. They are anti-cavalry monsters. They help you redefine your so-called front line and push your way into the enemy's face. For a slow faction like the Chaos Dwarfs, that's a big deal. Finally, a synergy that may not be obvious. These units are wonderful bullies but have a hard time bullying braced infantry with anti-large weapons. What does bully them? Iron Demons and Skullcrackers running them over. The Skullcracker actually benefits from the red line rank 7 buffs that the renders do. In other words, you're kind of meant to deploy them together. It's expensive, sure, but one other thing renders can't do? They can't break down or climb over walls. So yeah, it may not come up every fight, but If you're out in campaign and you need a wall to come down and for renders to follow in behind the Skullcracker, you've created a severe threat to most garrisons. Maybe they can deal with you. If they can't, exploit. Seriously, crushing the weak is kind of these guys' job. Skullcrackers drown in too much melee too, but Skullcrackers and renders, wonderful, wonderful kills. Take care.